I hope you guys are ready for this one. Really. Prepare thyselves and steel your blades, because today we will be discussing Condoriano, the greatest One Piece character to ever exist on the history of the entire planet, the whole series, the whole franchise. Screw it. Every anime that's ever existed up until this point, every work of fiction that's ever been written, screw you, Shakespeare, Condoriano. Or Commander Shepard is his real name. Do people know that Condoriano, when they started that meme, isn't even his real name? It was just a name given to him by Usopp to just trick the Marine. Whatever, anyway, yeah. Today we're talking about Black Blades. Alright, so here's the deal with this. Interesting little theory. While back, I think I read a little thread somewhere, maybe it was on the Reddit, maybe somebody commented it on a video, I can't really remember, but somebody asked me, hey, do you think it's possible to endow armament haki permanently into metal? And that's what we see with Mihawk's Yoru, which is obviously a black blade, and of course, you know, Shisui is a black blade as well. Yeah, okay, before you go down and comment, yeah, I know I flubbed the names, okay? It should be Shusui, I call it Shisui, and get ready, because I say Shisui a lot in this video. You know, I just screwed it up. I've said it properly before, I don't know why I messed it up this time, but yeah, I guess just think of Shisui Uchiha every time I say it, I guess, I don't know. And at first I just thought, no, that's not it. It's simply adding haki onto a blade, or in the case with Yoru, it might just be a type of metal that's black. But then I started thinking about it, and it's like, well, there might actually be something to this. Because you consider how many black blades really are there in the One Piece world. Not that many. In fact, I think Mihawk's Yoru and Shisui are the only two, I believe, that are like black blades all the time, even if they're not being held by a user with armament haki or something, no matter what. Like, Shisui was a black blade, you know, long after Ryuma was dead, and when he handed it off to Zoro, and, you know, obviously Mihawk, you know, if he just leaves his Yoru lying around on his coffee table next to, I don't know, Modern Vampires Monthly, it's also going to stay black. So, I always assumed it was just a special kind of metal, and that kind of metal was just really durable. You could still add haki to it, like when Zoro was fighting against Pika, and he was hakiing up his blades, he, you know, the Shisui wasn't exempt from that, he added haki onto that blade too. But, you know, it is kind of weird that there's this really rare black metal in the One Piece world, or at least there's this process of forging blades into black blades that doesn't ever really get brought up at all. You'd think if this was like some really powerful metal, and obviously Mihawk has a black blade, and he's the strongest swordsman in the world, you'd think people would be going around trying to find this metal. Like, oh, we need to go around and find the same material that the strongest swordsman's blade is made out of, and then make our own swords that are also be able to contend with him. You'd think that would be, like, common, right? So, with that being the case, I can think of two possibilities here. Number one, it's just a normal metal. It doesn't have anything to do with haki. It's just a special type of metal, or maybe, you know, more than one type of metal, and when they're forged together by an expert blacksmith, you get this unique black steel, which is also a lot more durable than standard steel. Let's just say that a blade that is a black blade is stronger than your average katana. Let's just, to give it kind of just a level of prestige, okay? So, it's just a really rare metal, and maybe it can only be mined in, like, Wano or something like that. Hey, we know, we don't really know the origins of Mihawk's Yoru. We don't know where he got it. Maybe he made it himself. We don't know. Zoro didn't make any of his blades, though. Being a master swordsman doesn't mean you're going to be a master swordsmith. So, and also, the whole thing with Mihawk's blade is it's one of the 12 Saijo Owazamono swords. Like, it's one of the 12 best in the entire world. So, it's probably been around for longer than Mihawk has ever been alive. Mihawk is in his early 40s. It's probably been around for a lot longer than that to build that level of, once again, prestige. Like, these are the 12 greatest swords in the entire world. Probably been around for at least, I want to say, 100 years, if not longer. So maybe that's the origin with Yoru, but we know the origin of Ryuma's Shisui definitely came from Wano. So, hey, maybe all of the greatest swords in the world might have originated from Wano at some point. you know, at least maybe the 12 Saijo Awazumonos did come from that place, which is where all these, you know, talented sword masters and swordsmiths are hanging out and making all these blades, and it's an entire country based off of feudal era Japan, so I guess it would make sense, right? We know that Katetsu, the one that forged, we don't know he came from Wano, but it's a distinct possibility, right? So, yeah, it could just be a very rare type of metal that's there, and the reason that you don't see a lot of black swords in One Piece is because, you know, you'd have to go to Wano, and Wano is kind of a hard place. It's kind of a locked-in country. It's not allied with the world government, and of course everything going on with Kaido and the Shogun right now, not probably easy to get into under normal circumstances. The other possibility is that, if a Haki user, an armament Haki user specifically, has a sword for a long period of time and is very skilled with it and kind of, you know, sort of like it is like an extension of themselves, you know, like, and the samurai would do that, to the point where the sword and the samurai themselves, they each have a certain cut of this fame, where the sword is just as famous as the samurai who wields it and vice versa, okay? So, it's possible that you could have, like, a badass samurai who gets a sword when he's young, and then travels, you know, fighting countless opponents, and learns Haki, and endows it with armament Haki in every battle, and then just over the course of the years, and as the decades pass, you know, he's poured so much of his will into this, because that's what Haki is, remember, that's like the literal translation of Haki is like willpower, right? He might have just, you know, added so much Haki to the blade that the blade permanently became a black blade. Right, and there's like just some inherent toughness from the armament Haki just poured into the steel that will remain, even long after that person is dead. Using Ryuma as an example here, Ryuma was this awesome, badass samurai. Dude slayed a dragon, he was pretty awesome. Go read Monsters if you haven't, like seriously, one of Oda's original one-shots. And, you know, he traveled the world with it, and he used Haki on the thing so many times it eventually became like a stained black blade, and then he was buried with it, and then eventually Hogback. So, hey, that's a story in and of itself. Somehow Hogback and Moria, I guess using Absalom's invisible powers, it would have been easier, but still kind of difficult to break into the Wano country, which is already in the New World, find the tomb of one of their most, you know, honored soldiers, their samurai, and then rob it, and then get out of Dodge. It seems like something that would be rather hard to accomplish, so maybe they might explain that. So yeah, I didn't buy into it at first, but I gotta tell you, it's kind of warmed up to me, like this possibility of that being the situation with Haki, like permanently altering steel. And the problem I had with it to begin with was, well, okay, if that's really how it works, if Haki just endowed into this metal permanently changes it and makes it really tough, then isn't that kind of overpowered, so anybody could just pick up a black blade and have this incredibly strong thing, you know, it doesn't matter who it is, and it didn't really make much sense, my reasoning there, because it doesn't matter how strong the sword is if the person who wields it is a novice. This could be the sharpest, strongest sword on the entire planet. I don't know how to use a damn sword. I think it's rather apparent if anybody that actually practices kendo or something watching this video, you're like, oh my god, Tekking, you are not holding that thing even close to being as appropriate. Like, you're disgracing my craft, Tekking. I'm like, I'm sorry, but you gotta give me this. It looks cool. I don't know if this stance has anything applicable to kendo, but you know what? It looks cool, and that's all that matters. But no, I'm a novice, right? So, yeah, it could be endowed with armament Haki to the point where it's super tough and it's super sharp, but if I don't know what I'm doing, you know, I'm just gonna probably end up cutting myself, right? Same thing with Mihawk's Yoru. You know, even if somebody manages to kill Mihawk and his sword is just lying on the battlefield and someone just picks it up, if they don't know how to actually use it, then it doesn't matter if it's super tough or whatever. And this kind of keys up to something that Mihawk stated when he was training Zoro. Remember the whole, you know, I will train you, and until you've mastered this, no more booze! By the way, this is the same bottle of sake that I had when I was doing Zoro's discussion video for the Straw Hats. Like, I think it was actually around a year ago that I did it, so I don't know if sake ever goes bad, but Mihawk said to Zoro in that one situation, he said, all blades can become black blades. Now, there's two ways that you can view that. You can either view it in the sense of, like, it was because of my training with armament Haki that my blade, Yoru, was able to become a black blade. It wasn't originally. It's, if you learn how to use armament Haki and you keep applying it to your blades, eventually all your blades will become black blades. That's one way of looking at it. The other way of looking at it is it's just he's using his sword as the highest standard. He's like, you know, you might think my blade is awesome, and it is, totally. Cut a galleon in half. Remember that, Zoro? Yes, I remember when you cut a galleon in half. Yeah, you couldn't hope to do something as awesome. I'll cut a galleon in half. But anyway, yeah. So it's like I'm just setting my sword up as a standard. It's one of the Saijo Owazamono swords, one of the greatest swords in the entire world. It's one of the best swords. So any sword, though, is possible to contend with my blade if your haki is strong enough. And of course, you have to keep training with your armament haki. You have to keep, you know, learning to increase the, I guess, the thickness and the sharpness of your steel, of course. But that's the task he gave Zoro. You know, all blades can become black blades. So if you just keep training with armament, then you will achieve that. Also, you have to keep in mind, though, that Yoru, Mihawk's blade, its literal translation just means knight. So I think that could also imply that the way it was forged originally was as a black sword because you're going to name it Knight, but who knows? You know, it might have just been eloquence. It might have just been like, oh, that sounds cool. All right, let's just call it Knight. It might have not have been a literal black sword, but very, very likely it could have been, okay? If we saw more examples of this, and we probably will when we get to Wano, the whole thing with the black steel, at least if it's some type of metal, we're gonna get that explained, like, you know, where is it mined or something like that. I would just like a little bit of explanation on that, because not all high-quality swords in One Piece are, you know, are black swords, like the Wado Ichimonji, which is just one tier below the Saijo Owazamono class. It's just an ordinary katana, you know, it seems like ordinary steel, but it is also one of the highest ranked blades. The Kitetsus, Zoro has only the Sandai Kitetsu, and that's like the lowest grade. That's only like a regular Wazamono grade sword. And a lot of the other swords, like Shiryu's sword, probably ranks pretty high, but we don't know, that's a regular katana, but we don't know the rank there. But I think that when we get to Wano, though, I think it's very likely we'll at least get to see one more additional black sword in Wano. Because we're going to see a lot of swords in Wano. It's going to be Swordapalooza 2019, 21? Please, Oda, don't make it 2021. But, you know, like, we're going to see a lot of them. Maybe the Shogun. That'd be cool. By the way, I'm picturing the Shogun, like the introduction of the Shogun, whether it's a male or a female. Like, okay, this is the way I'm envisioning it. We're like maybe a dozen or so chapters into Wano, right? We have to get our bearings first, you know, Luffy and the crew, Sanji, everybody arriving at Wano, meeting back up with the Straw Hats and Law and like Frankie and Zoro, everybody getting to like, you know, regroup and figuring everything out. But maybe about like 10 or so chapters into Wano, we cut over to the castle, you know, and we like cut into a room, and it's like this immaculate like bed area. There's like fancy pillows and drapery everywhere. There's a bunch of busty women walking around, which seems like normal One Piece, but even more so in this one instance. And you see the Shogun just chilling out on a bed, you know, open robe. You know, if it's a guy, I'm envisioning it like, oh, who is that guy? It was, Nobunaga. You ever watch Drifters? Like, some dude like Nobunaga, he has the sword at his side like this, open robe, jewelry, eye patch, awesome ponytail, and he's just sitting there like, ah, so the Straw Hats have arrived. Like, that's how, and if it's a woman, the same basic deal, except minus the goatee and add some boobage. You know, that's the way I'm envisioning that introduction for that character, so, you know, just file that away under the possibilities, and then maybe I'll do a dance if that actually turns out to be the case. But, they could most likely have one of the Saijo Owazamono grade swords, which could in fact be a black blade. So there's that there. Let's talk about the armament haki just in a broad sense here, because last arc, Totland, we were talking a lot about observation, and that got people thinking, hey, maybe the next arc we're going to go all about armament haki. Okay, and that also kind of makes sense when you look at this, because who is the Straw Hat that's the most gifted at observation? Who Oda stated is most specialized at observation? That was Sanji. And that arc was, well, it's purported to be all about Sanji, but yeah, it kind of cuts off about halfway, and I'm going to be doing a video about that, don't worry. Like, after the arc wraps up properly, we're going to be doing like a Sanji analysis, right? But Sanji knows all about observation, that's what he's specialized in, and then Luffy, of course, had his fight with Katakuri, where he had to learn how to master observation haki to a whole new level. Well, if you can master observation haki to a whole new level, stands to reason you could also master armament and conquerors to a whole new level as well. So we're going to Wano next, and who is the Straw Hat that specializes with armament hockey? That'd be Zoro, bitches! So, I think we could see that. I think we could possibly see a new whole level of armament. Now, how could you actually take this? Well, observation originally was set up as just the kind of hockey that allows you to kind of just sense your opponent and your surroundings in a general sense. Like, you can determine where certain attacks are coming from. It kind of slows down into bullet time when, like, you know, those water missiles are coming at you. Like Hody shot at Zoro, he could just kind of slow it down so he could block it with his the hilt of his blade. Still one of the most badass Zoro moments ever. Along with right after that when he actually cut Hody. Is it Hody or Hordy? Doesn't matter. That's how it works. And then advancing it to the next level, which Katakuri was able to do, is just to see the future. Right, a little bit. So, you know, not super overpowered. It wasn't like Katakuri could see, like, hours or days into the future. Just a little bit. So, with armament hockey, the basic gist is the way it was, discussed by Rayleigh, how he described it, was adding invisible armor to yourself or your weapons to add an extra layer of toughness to it, right? And we saw Zoro incorporate this at Dressrosa when he was fighting Pika. He goes to cut him. He channels the black aura into his blades. Looks really badass in the anime. It's got, like, purple dark aura coming off of it. And, like, basically like a demon blade in that instance. In the manga, it was just, you know, strictly just, you know, just all his blades were colored black, and then he managed to cut down Pika, increasing the toughness and the sharpness. His blades were not even scratched or chipped a little bit afterwards. So I'm thinking, okay, how can you extend that a little bit? Well, what about projectiles? Now, we already know that Zoro is capable of flying slash techniques, but has Zoro done a flying slash technique that incorporated hockey yet? Because the only time that Zoro has ever actually used hockey in his blade, canonically, because I think he also did it in Film Gold, but even in that instance, I don't think he used a projectile attack. It was when he fought against Pika, and he used, you know, Ichidai Sansen Daisen Sekai, and I think the shockwave was just so strong, it managed to slice him in half there. So I guess you could say that was a projectile in a sense, but I think it was just, you know, the initial attack was just so goddamn strong, the resulting shockwave and impact just, you know, radiated outward and sliced Pika in half. When I'm talking about projectiles, I'm talking about his, you know, his 36, 72, well, it's 360, 720 caliber Phoenix techniques now. I don't think he's ever used those kind of techniques yet while endowing his sword with hockey. So it's possible that the next step beyond having a suit of armor that surrounds you is having the ability to project your hockey outwards, maybe short distances. And we're not just talking about swords here. We're not just talking about, you know, throwing hockey into a sword and it's like 360 caliber Phoenix and then shooting a hockey wave bullet or whatever. We're talking about just standard, like Luffy, armament hockeying up his arms and then just like, and then shooting out like a shockwave that's hockeyed up that could, you know, cause, you know, short to mid-range damage against your opponent. Nothing long range. Nothing on the level of, like, your opponent's a mile away and you'll be able to, like, you know, like freaking Baki the Grappler, I think, did that a few times. Or probably, you know, Fist of the North Star, you know, Kenshiro probably also did that. You know, just BAM! You know, shockwave so strong and it can affect enemies from, like, miles and miles away. Nothing of that nature if you're not using a weapon. Zoro maybe could do it, hockeyed up his sword, you know, a flying projectile technique. That could maybe strike him a mile away or something like that. But in terms of just you rake standard next level armament hockey, that could be something I could definitely see. As for what's next for Conquerors, I don't know, because Conquerors is already kind of like affects a large area, you know, knocking people out. You know, when Luffy and when Luffy and Don Chinjiao and when Luffy and Doflamingo clashed, there was like that lightning shooting off, so I don't know if that's just metaphorical, like symbolic, like here are the wills of two kings coming together and it's just represented by those electrical, you know, sparks, or if that's like a legitimate thing. Like, if you were near Luffy and Doflamingo when that electricity went off, it could seriously damage you in some way. I have no idea. Maybe I'll get back to you on that. That'll be a separate video on the discussions involving next level Conquerors, and leave your comments below on that. But yeah, for this video, I just wanted to, honestly, I wanted to use the swords again in a video pretty much, but that was something that made me interested in exactly how the Black Blades are forged, what hockey has a role in that, and maybe if you use something for, I mean, I think it makes sense, you know, you use
a weapon for long enough, and you've had it with you for decades, and you always use armament hockey with it, eventually it might get permanently stained black. I think that makes sense, and we just the reason we haven't seen that with Zoro yet is because he's only known hockey for not even 2 years, because it's not like he learned hockey like immediately training with Mihawk. I want to say maybe like a year at best, maybe a year and a half, you know, that Zoro's been able to actually comprehend and use armament hockey to the point of adding it to his sword. So, you know, obviously, right? Okay, well, thanks for watching, everybody. Leave your comments below on what you think about this subject matter, and I'll get back to you. This weekend, I am going to be attending an anime convention at Pittsburgh. It's going to be TechoCon. I go every year. This year I'll be staying a little bit longer, though. We're getting a hotel this time. It's me and a friend that are going. I will be arriving there Friday night, Friday afternoon, and we'll be leaving Saturday. So I'm going to try to get at least one video like pre-recorded for you guys. Thankfully, there is no One Piece chapter this week. Oda, I know that sucks for, you know, everybody, because it's like, I want to see what happens. Big cliffhanger. But for me, this week, it's good, because that way I don't have to, like, worry about getting it out, because it would be delayed, because I'm not going to be able to film it. But I'll try to get at least one more video out tomorrow, and then pre-record something that can air Friday, Saturday. I will try to upload video footage while I'm at Techo, while I'm at the hotel. That really just depends on how good the Wi-Fi is. If it's not that good, I'm not going to... I mean, I'm going to film a bunch of stuff, but if the Wi-Fi is not good, you're not going to be able to see any of it. You know, maybe I'll do a live stream at the hotel or something. I don't know. Well, but if I can get something out to you guys, I will definitely try to do that, because, you know, I like getting stuff out for you guys. Oh, yes. But anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. This will be Teching 101, signing out.